Hi everyone, how are you doing? I'm feeling quite tired today. I'm sort of keeping going just with a lot of tea and caffeine. I sort of wonder, because I drink at least two of these giant mugs of tea every single day. So I sort of wonder sometimes, like maybe I should give up caffeine for a little while, and I mean, then I could be one of those YouTubers that makes a video like, I gave up caffeine for a week, and here's what happened. But I don't know. I don't think I want to do that. But anyway, I have lots of new books that I want to talk to you about and that I'm excited to read. First off, in very exciting news, my local library has opened again. So I finally joined it. It was one of my reading goals for the year to finally join my local library because I have so many books on my shelves. I sort of felt like I didn't really need to, but actually, my local library is so beautiful. The outside of it is absolutely gorgeous, and there's views all over the city from the hilltop it's on. So yeah, it's really beautiful, and I wasn't able to wander around in the library because as it is at the moment you have to make an appointment and only their lobby is open, and so you reserve books online, you make an appointment, and you go collect those books from the lobby at your appointed time. And so I'm looking forward to being able to just browse through all of the shelves. But at the moment, I got some books out, and one I got out is Exhalation by Ted Chiang. This collection of sci-fi short stories, which is one of the books I talked about in the video I made about 100 science fiction books, because I want to get a bit more into reading science fiction. And these stories sound totally up my street because they're about alternate universes and alien scientists and yeah, sort of loopholes through time. But they're also meant to be very thoughtful and almost philosophical. And yeah, and I've just heard really great things about this author. I post about this on Twitter, and the writer Lisa Evans responded to me saying how she absolutely loves this book. And yeah, so I think it's one I'm really gonna enjoy, and I just love this trippy cover. I also have a couple more novels by the writer Norman Locke, which I had to order online because I don't think they're published in the UK and wasn't able to find them in any bookshops here. So I had to order them from used bookstores online. And this is the writer that Joyce Carol Oates recommended to me. I showed off one of his books before in a book haul, but I've been ordering more of his books in this series, in this American Lives series, where he reinvents or retells the lives of some great American authors through a new story, which sort of bends time in this sort of in this sort of like postmodern type way. So there's this novel, The Port Wine Stain, which plays off from the life of Edgar Allan Poe, and then there's A Fugitive in Walden Woods, who guess who's that is about? And yes, it's about Henry David Thoreau, and yeah, these are writers I've really enjoyed reading in the past, and so but I feel like if I'm going to go read all of these novels, I should go back and read for the first time or reread some of these great American authors. So it'll be one of these big reading projects, which I know I won't be able to embark on now, but I'm just starting to collect some of his books. And I'm hoping maybe later this year, this can be a really fun reading project that I do, of reading all of his novels and the original sources of all of these books. So yeah, hoping to get to that at some point. The Mothers by Britt Bennett. This is her first novel, which wasn't published in the UK before, but it's finally been published in the UK now because her novel The Vanishing Half was published here a couple months ago and has done so well and been really popular. And I loved it myself. It's one of my favorite books that I've read so far this year. And so I'm so excited to go back and read her debut novel, which has such a beautiful cover, how they've published this. So the story is about two teenagers who have had quite a rough time in life so far. There's one young woman who mother has committed suicide, and so she's working through the grief of that, and a young man who is a star athlete who suffers from a bad injury, and he's not able to play sports anymore, and so yeah, finds his like expectations in life sort of cut off at that point, and they become a couple and they have a child together. So it follows their lives going forward from that, and yeah, it follows their struggles. And yeah, she's just such a great great writer in the way she constructs a story and the themes and issues that she talks about. So eager to read more. Then I have a few new books by Irish writers. You know, I love Irish writing. So the first I have is a new writer, and this is a collection of short stories called Modern Times by Claire Sweeney. And this comes adorned with blurbs by other Irish authors that I really love, like Kevin Barry and Sinead Gleeson and Danielle McLaughlin. So yeah, I'm really eager to. I think the stories sort of have an absurdist type twist to them. One story is about someone who wakes up and finds that everyone has started turning blue, and then another story is about a wife who loves her husband's cock so much that she starts taking it with her to work in a lunchbox, which is why the cover of this novel has like this design. So there's that. The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. This is her new novel by the great Irish novelist, though, you know, she's really more a writer of the world because she's also lived in England and currently lives in Canada. I think she's lived there for quite a long time, but this story takes her back to Ireland. It's set in Dublin in 1918 during the time of the Great Flu. So obviously there's going to be sort of parallels in terms of like the pandemic, and it concerns the story of a nurse who works in a ward where a group of mothers have come down with this illness and are all sequestered there. And over the course of 3 days, their lives change very dramatically. Then there is a new novel by John Boyne, A Traveller at the Gates of Wisdom. This is described as one of his most ambitious novels yet, which is quite a feat because I feel like a lot of his novels are really ambitious. But the story of this sounds quite wild. So it's about a family, but it follows that family through basically the course of human history from ancient times to modern times and then into the future. And I'm not sure how that's really structured or played out, if it's like multiple generations or if it's like literally the souls of the same people who travel throughout time. I'm not really sure how that works because, you know, that's sort of been done before where individuals, their sort of souls are move through different bodies throughout the ages. So, but I guess let's see. But I like how in the inside cover of there's this kind of ancient design there, and and that's followed through into the back. So I'm always really curious to read his new writing. Blue in Chicago by Bette Howland. This collection of short stories comes with a fascinating story. So Bette Howland was a writer that was kind of a protege of the great author Saul Bellow. And when she was a young writer, first starting to publish things, she had this great acclaim, and she found that a bit overwhelming, and it became crippling for her as a writer to produce new things. I mean, she still continued to write, but she just didn't publish all that much else during the course of her life. And she died in 2017 to relative obscurity. But 2 years before she died, an editor at the literary magazine A Public Space found a copy of her memoir in a secondhand used bookstore, and she bought it and read it and thought her writing was extraordinary and wanted to help revive this writer who had basically fallen out of public view and sort of the literary scene. And so her work is now being republished. And I think it's so great when there's these stories of writers who have fallen into relative obscurity and then who come back into the spotlight many years after, the initial burst of excitement about their work. So I'm really curious to explore these short stories. Then I have another Bette, and this is actually a novel called Bette by a writer named Tiffany McDaniel. And I've had this novel highly recommended to me by multiple people, including Matthew Sharapa. And so it's the story of a girl named Bette, of course, who's born in a large family. She's one of 8 children, born to a Cherokee father and a white mother in Appalachia. And their family moves around quite a lot, and she lives in this community that is rife with poverty and violence. And Bette dreams of a better life beyond this, and she starts writing. And so this is the writer, the Tiffany McDaniel has talked about how this is basically a novel dedicated to her mother and how there's lots of similarities between this and her mother's life, though I think her mother was actually one of 12 children. So yeah, this is sort of a love letter to her mother and just sounds like a great story. So yeah, would be very excited to read this. Stand By Me by Wendell Berry. This is about another small town impoverished American community. But this is a book of short stories about the lives of multiple people in this community over a century. So it follows them from I think the early 1900s, then like into the 2000s, and so is about all different characters' lives, but it's all the same community. So some of those characters connect with each other, and really that's kind of my favorite kind of writing. So this sounds like an ideal book for me that I'd really like to read. Reproduction by Ian Williams. This is a proof copy, so this is what the finished copy of the novel looks like, and I'm so excited that this novel has finally been published in the UK, because this won the Giller Prize in Canada in 2019, and the Giller Prize is one that I've always wanted to follow a lot more, but there's a lot of Canadian books which don't often come out in the UK, so it's a bit harder for me to follow that prize. But yeah, I'm glad that this has finally come out here. So the story concerns two relatively young people who meet in a hospital when both their mothers are ill and they're sharing a hospital room. So they sort of meet there and develop a uneasy relationship with each other, but which is romantic at some points, and they have a child together. So it sort of follows their lives and the life of their child going forward. The Times I Knew I Was Gay by Eleanor Cruz. I think this is an autobiographical graphic memoir following the author's life when from an early age there were sort of signs in that she was obsessed with the character of Willow from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and just never really liked boys. So for people who probably in the know saw that there were signs there, but she writes in this about how there are multiple times throughout queer people's lives where they have to come out again and again through different situations and in different contexts, and I'd like to read more graphic memoirs and graphic fiction, so yeah, this is one I'd like to get to as well. And finally I have Katheryn Howard, The Tainted Queen by Alison Weir. So this is the fifth book in her series on 6 Tudor queens, following the reimagining the lives of Henry VIII's wives. And I've never read Alison Weir before. My mother is a huge fan of hers, and I really regretted that. There was one literary event where Alison Weir was there, and I got to meet her, and I talked to her for a while, but I didn't think to take a photograph of her or get her autograph for my mother, because at that point I wasn't sure if my mother had read her that or not, because although I knew that my mother's a huge fan and really interested in this period of history, but anyway, yeah, so I've not read these yet, and I've been a bit unsure about whether I'll like Alison Weir's writing. I'd be really interested to know from anyone who's read it what they think of it, and also like how it compares with Hilary Mantel's reimagining of this period of time, because obviously I've been reading a lot about this period and a lot of these historical figures through the lens of Hilary Mantel's fictional world, but I'm not sure how that compares with Alison Weir's fiction. So yeah, I think that'd be an interesting project, and I'm not sure if I'd like this, but yeah, it's a really beautifully published book, and look at the inside of this. Isn't this absolutely gorgeous? Yeah, it's so beautiful. So those are all the books I want to talk about. A lot of books that I want to get to, like in addition to all of the prize reading that I've been doing lately. So yeah, I'm hoping to get at least to some of these. So let me know in the comments which you're most interested in, which you'd like to read first, and yeah, all of that good stuff. Hope you're doing well and staying caffeinated, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye, everyone.